Hi, it's Deanna, and one of my eBay purchases just arrived, so I can't wait to open it up and show you all. Now, this was an auction that I had won probably about 10 days ago, I think, or 7 days ago, and it went pretty hot and heavy at the end, but I still got it for a good deal. Thankfully, because if it got too high, I wouldn't have bid on it. So I'm going to open up the box and show you what's inside. So what this actually is probably an 1860s to 1870s photo album with loose photos and some photos in this album. Now, this photo album is pretty toasty. It's like totally in really bad shape. It's falling apart. The spine is totally crumbled, as you can see. And the binding is detached from the actual book. As you can see here, look at that. So I'm going to try to save it. Now, I'm not an expert at saving antique books. And so what I did was I went on Amazon and I bought this special tape. It's called Book Guard. And it's like duct tape for books. And it comes in all different colors. So you can actually get this in almost pretty much every color of the rainbow. And I got it in brown. And what I'm going to try to do is try to fix this and put the binding back together again. Now, it's not going to look pretty because you're pretty much duct taping this book. But I just want to keep it so it's, I'm able to keep the photos in here protected, and I'll be able to open and close the album without fear that it's going to come apart. So after I'm done taping the binding together and trying to put it back together again, I'll show you what's inside. Stay tuned. So as you can see, that book binding tape really worked. It's a cloth tape, and it's like duct tape. You can just tear it off to the desired sizes you want. It held this book together. It's pretty cool. Now, when I won this on eBay, I went on Amazon and I ordered it so it can arrive before the book arrived. And so I could fix it because I hate when these books are falling apart. And this is quite interesting. Now, librarians use this for libraries, and so do churches. When their hymnal books and their Bibles are falling apart, they just use this archival duct tape. And that's pretty cool. So let me show you what I have here. So now the seller was in Texas. Most of the pictures say Ohio, and that was very interesting. So here we go. Let's start with this beautiful album. And look, it has an original ad. It says, "From the People's Drug and Bookstore, Hicksville, Ohio." And there's a notation inside of it. Mrs. Alice Sneerly, birthday present from her mother, November 15th, 1886. Now, the interesting thing is a lot of these photographs, a lot of them came loose. The seller didn't put them back in the sleeves. I already did that. But a lot of the photographs were dated from the 1860s and the 1870s. So this was given to her as a gift by her mother at a later date than the photographs. So she probably had photos and had no place to put them. So the mom was nice enough to give her this lovely book. So look at the graphics on this. This is really amazing. Look at that. You can see gold gilding and hand coloring or hand tinting, which is really cool. Looks like even an original price tag. Is that $1.75 or $1.71? Well, back in 1880, I know $1 was equivalent to $30. So this book may have been quite expensive. Now, what's really cool is we have what looks like a gem tintype, and these were tiny little miniature photographs taken around the 1860s and 1870s. And you can tell this is an 1860s photograph by the cartouche going around the photo. Generally, a lot of photos that I see that are dated from the 1860s have this particular design. And what's even prettier is this gold metal little placard that surrounds the photograph. You can see it was hand tinted, and that's really a really beautiful picture. It could possibly be an early 1870s photo also, but I know that around the 1860s this design was really popular. We clearly have 1860s photos here. Now, I know a lot of photographs that I find on the internet that are dated from the 1860s have this little star motif going around it. Now, this is a tintype. And you see a lady with hand-tinted cheeks, and she has fingerless gloves, which was really the style of the 1860s, especially that hairdo that was tightly coiffed, like very parted down the central. It was like parted down the center of the forehead, which was very severe looking for women back then. And here we have her husband who has hand-tinted cheeks. That's a tintype as well. And hand tinting was a service that was very expensive back then. It was an extra service you can buy with your photo. Now it says Mrs. Sneerly, mother and father. So this is Mrs. Sneerly's mother and father. Very, very interesting. Now, by the way, I forgot to tell you, so I taped the insides of the book too. Look how it's holding together. That's really interesting. So we have another 1860s photograph, and you can tell by the balloon-shaped skirt, which was also bell-shaped. Now, around that time frame, the 1860s and the late 1860s, this was the fashion and all the rage. Now, as the decades moved on, the skirts got narrower and not as wide. Here's another 1860s photograph, and this is Alice Creary. Now, Alice Creary was Alice Kimball Creary Sneerly. That was her full name, and she is the owner of this book. I looked up the name on the internet, and I found a whole biography of her, including other photographs of her, and including photos of her gravestone. She died in 1937 at 87 years old, and she died in Texas, even though these photos were taken in Ohio. Now, the peculiar thing is actually my eBay seller is from Texas, and so this was her album. That was probably I don't know, someone probably got a hold of it, and then an eBay seller got a hold of it and sold it to me. So this is the owner of the book during the 1860s. Look at that really great ball gown that she's wearing with the gloves. And so this is our owner of the album. Really, really interesting. This is probably her mother. So now we have children. This is clearly the 1870s. Here's an 1870s photo of a young man over here, and an 1860s or a very early 1870s photo of a gentleman here. And he looks like he's a guy that would have definitely fought in the Civil War. He has that look to him, that Civil War soldier look. And I wonder if that's Alice's husband. He was, I found out, a Civil War soldier. So we have baby Grace Sneerly over here. This is a beautiful tintype, and this photo was loose. I put it into the album, and on the back, I wrote down what was on the back of the picture. It said, Grace, born January 19, 1874, 9.5 months when this photo was taken, so this is 1875, and Hicksville, Ohio. Very interesting. Now we have, this might be Alice and her husband. There is a photo of her husband on the internet, and he looks a lot like this guy. This is the 1870s, and it's a tintype. So we got two tintypes here. Now we have Grace again. And here we go. Here's a beautiful tintype. You could tell the 1870s by these fringe chairs. That was all the rage in the 1870s in photographs. And we have Alice, let's see, Alice and Gertrude Sneerly. And in the Find a Grave website where we saw Alice's information, where I saw Alice's information, one of her children's name was Gertrude and Alice. So that is very interesting. And here's clearly the 1870s photograph of the two daughters. There was a Grace, but she was born in 1882. But on one of the backs of one of these photos, it says born in 1874. So I think that might be a different Grace. I don't know. So it appears that we have Grace again in a tintype in those fringe chairs I was telling you about. And here's Grace again. Or maybe one of the other kids. Have a beautiful late 1860s, early 1870s photograph. You can tell by the striped stockings that that's from that time frame. The 1870s, generally girls wore headbands like that. So that's quite interesting. Now we have a wedding photo. And generally brides wear white. But back in the Victorian era, if a woman didn't have the money to purchase a wedding dress, which was quite expensive, she would wear her Sunday best with a veil. So I thought that's interesting as well. So we have, it looks like Alice and her husband. And that's one of her babies. And this is a tintype. Look at that. 1870s for sure, because the dress is narrow. It's not as bell-shaped from like the 1860s style. And this may be Grace, baby Grace again, or one of the other kids. But you can clearly see the baby here and the baby in her arms, which is quite interesting. We have another child, and this is a beautiful tin type. And then we have another 1870s photo of some girl. Now, I didn't take all the photos out of the book. There's probably a lot more information on the backs of some of the photos that I haven't looked at. So here we have another baby in the 1870s with that fringe chair I was telling you about. You see the arms of the chair with the fringe on it? And that was all the rage in the 1870s. Now we have Dapper Dan over here, sitting in one of those fringe chairs of the 1870s. I call him Dapper Dan for some reason. He looks very dapper. Beautiful tin types. A lot of tin types in this photo album. More tin types here. And this might be Alice again. And you see that these photographs are hand tinted, which was actually just as costly as the actual photograph itself back then. Look at that fancy, fancy hairstyle. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. And we have a little boy sitting in the fringe chair I was telling you about. You see the fringe? And again, 1870s clearly. And look who it is. It's Robin Williams. He decided to show up. So this is actually Robin Williams' doppelganger, or 1870s version. And oh my God, it looks, I swear to God, it looks, maybe I'm crazy. Is that Robin Williams in mutton chops? I don't know. Here we have another baby. It's a tin type photo. And we have, last but not least, a lady wearing a comb. And generally these combs were made out of tortoiseshell or celluloid, which was actually an early form of plastic that was invented in the Victorian time. So this book is only missing 3 photos, which is quite interesting. And that book tape is just phenomenal. Look how good it's holding the book together. So now I'm going to show you, I'm going to take you to a cutaway, and I'm going to show you Alice's information that I found on the internet with her actual photos and her gravestone. So stay tuned 1 second while I take you to it. So here's the Alice that we all know and loved. And this was the person who owned this photo album. So here she is. I found her on the Find a Grave website. And it's really interesting that we have a photograph of her here as well. Alice Kimball Creary Sneerley. Now the book, if you remember, was dated as a birthday present, dated November 15th. And here it says, birth November 15th, 1849, Hicksville, Defiance County, Ohio. The funny part is, a block away from me here on Long Island, the town next door to me is called Hicksville. So this is really interesting. She actually died in 1937 at age 87. She was buried in Texas. So her death was Henrietta, Clay County, Texas, USA. And the person I purchased this book from was in Texas. So we have, it says 4 photos. Let's take a look at that. And here she is. Someone added that in 2007. Here's the gravestone. There's her gravestone actually right there. Alice. Really, really interesting to see this. And here she is. Oh my God, I guess that was taken in the 20s or the teens. Wow, really cool. We have her information. And so here's what it says about her. Let's find the information. It says, Alice was the wife of a Civil War veteran, Albert A. Sneerley, the son of Benjamin Sneerley and Lucy Ender Sneerley. So now we may have Albert's photos in this book. So we have a Civil War veteran in this album. Now that makes these albums worth a lot more. She was the daughter of James Madison Kimball and Arvilla Stone Kimball. James Madison Kimball died in 1852. Alice's mother remarried Reverend Nathaniel Crary. Alice and Albert were married on January 1st, 1872 in Defiance County, Ohio. And I have a feeling that his photos are in this book. I had to take all of them out and look for the notations on the back. They had 5 children. We have an obituary, and it says that she was a Clay County, Texas pioneer, resided there for 60 years. It seems like she was well respected and well loved. And so we have her obituary. We have her family members. Look at this, the people that were in the book. We have her children. I showed you Gertrude, Alice, Grace. Very, very interesting. And the cool part is we can see Albert Sneerly here. And it does look a lot like the guy that we saw in the book. Let me try to blow it up. Can't do it on my cell phone. Okay, well, nonetheless, thanks for watching. If you like what you see, hit the thumbs up and subscribe.